So I'm very excited about this next discussion for many reasons. And I'm going to name each one of those reasons right now. So please put your hands together as I call out Bill Werde, the editorial director of Billboard magazine, Jermaine Dupri, and Daria Musk. Come on, let's give them a big round of applause. Yes. Go on, guys, come on out. Have a seat anywhere you'd like. Always a pleasure, sir. Always a pleasure. You get a hug, yeah. All right. I don't know how many of this is some trivia, by the way, but JD and I spoke together. And this last time we actually saw each other was what 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. And so in the Twitterverse, you still stay connected. So these real life moments are few and far between, but it's a good relationship nonetheless. So this is a conversation about how the world of music is changing. I think we all know this is changing. But more importantly, how you can take these insights from two folks who sort of look at the industry and are looking at changing the industry with what we can do, but also two folks that are changing the industry because of what they do. So let's jump right in. JD, I'm going to start with you, or Jermaine, I'm going to start with you. You've used social for many years. You've used technology for many years. But I was wondering if you could sort of spend a minute or two just kind of telling the audience some of the most innovative moments you've had over the years of how you use social.
Let me see. Think about it.
There might be that Janet Jackson cover.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I started this. I was the president of Virgin Records, and I did this contest for Janet Jackson album 20YO, where I wanted her fans to actually create the album cover. Well, I actually saw them on MySpace creating all kind of artwork that looked better than the people that we had working at Virgin making artwork. And I was just like, damn, these people should work here or something. And you know, as I looked at more and more pictures, and I started showing it to her, and I'm like, you know, we should do a contest where we let these kids and your fans be really a part of this project and take pictures that we give them or pictures that they find of you and create a cover. The idea was incredible. Everybody was, stoked about it. But Virgin Records didn't understand that you can't have a global artist and not have a global contest. So this was my frustration of being part of the whole social world, is that I wanted to do something that was massive to the world, like what she does. And the record company was not up on how to get this out and make it where everybody around the world could be a part of it. So it actually just drove me crazy. It also was something that had something to do with MySpace as well, that there was partially part of the reason why it couldn't happen as well. And it drove me to create my own site that would, knock those walls completely down. Start off with those walls down and encourage people from all around the world to be a part of what I'm doing.
Right.
Because they couldn't at that point.
And so what was that outcome? What did that outcome look like?
As far as what?
Just in terms of like the response and like how Virgin might have looked at that.
Well, Virgin looked terrible. I got.
How do you feel about Virgin?
I got a lot of flack from off the social sites of people telling me, "How are you the president? You're leaving people out in London, and she has fans in Germany, and she has fans, and these is messages that was coming, and me being a part of the social world, I was actually reading this. The people that was at work, they didn't know what was going on, and I felt really bad. So I mean, I was left just trying to figure out how do I catch up to what I left and let them know that since then I figured it out.
All right. Well, I got a question to follow that up, but I want to go to you, Daria. I mean, you're an artist, and now you're a famous artist, and I'd love for you to spend a minute telling us that story of how you got to where you are.
Sure. It's funny because one of my little mottos is crash the party, and that came from having no, like contacts in the music industry, no cash or connections or anything, and sort of this idea of like, well, if I'm not invited, I'll sort of break my way in and leave the doors swinging open behind me, and I sort of crashed my way onto this panel. So sorry. The short version, since I am a party crashing this panel, is that I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm from Connecticut, about an hour away from here, and I was doing what every singer-songwriter could think of, except maybe omitting like the TV talent shows. I wanted to try to do it the way my heroes did. So like I heard the Police played CBGBs, and there were 3 people in the crowd, and those people ended up being radio DJs, and the next day they spun Roxanne, and they were huge, right? So I played CBGBs when I was like 16, and there were totally 3 people in the crowd, but they weren't DJs. But I was doing that kind of thing and trying to learn how to play guitar better and write better songs and playing a lot of empty rooms and then so about a year ago, I was lugging my amps through the rain to play a dive bar in upstate New York. I think it was called Polly's Bar. Shout out to Polly's. And it's pouring rain, and my phone rings, and I'm getting drenched. It's my big brother, and he's like, hey, there's this new social network called Google+. Maybe you could be one of the first musicians on there. And I was like, Google what? Like, I got to make sound check, and I hung up on him. But the next day I signed up, and I saw this thing called Hangouts, which is a video chat where you can see and interact with up to 10 people at once. And I thought maybe I could use that to play a gig without having to lug my amps through the rain. And then, so again, long story short, I did my first concert 3 days later, and people from all over the world showed up. And I, again, had like no fan base to speak of. Like people down the road didn't know the words to my songs. And all of a sudden there was someone from Buenos Aires and someone from Norway and India, and there they were. And I ended up singing for 6.5 hours that night as people rotated in and out of the 10 seats of the Hangout. And then the next concert was watched by 9,000 people in 100 countries, and then a week later, 200,000 people, and it just kind of got crazier from there. So, yeah.
What a great story. I mean, if you don't have a community, create a community, right? So the idea of crash a party and create a party, I love your philosophy.
Thanks.
And Bill, first, so this is actually something I didn't make a big spectacle of, but I want to bring it up because it actually has a purpose. So it's part humble brag, but for a reason, and that was I
know it's totally humble brag.
It's totally hashtag that. But I was surprised one day to see a tweet from Billboard magazine congratulating me on making their Twitter 140 list, and I was like, whoa, making a Billboard list. And not even being an artist is kind of a cool thing. So first, you made my entire year. Second, though, you actually inspired me to change what I was actually going to do about music in the year to come. So if you didn't know, I had an opportunity to bring Billy Corgan out to South by Southwest and have a really amazing conversation. And by the time we finished, I got on a plane that afternoon. There were already headlines on Billboard and Rolling Stone about how Billy Corgan hates the music industry, calls fans, basically they don't know what they're doing, and new artists, I think he likened them to fresh strippers in a strip club. It was just certainly a very interesting conversation. I thought, wow, well, I guess, I'm coming back to South by Southwest next year, and how do you top that? So I was thinking about other artists that could really make a statement to bring music forward, and because of that list, I thought, well, maybe I don't need to bring an artist to Interactive. Maybe I need to start bringing controversial artists to South by Southwest music so that they can start to understand the impact of digital at the music scene. And you had a really interesting response to that, and now we've actually have this master plan. So what was that response? About bringing about you having the other idea.
Listen, we're at Billboard. I think we're well positioned to kind of help bridge some of the remaining enmity that goes on between kind of the people that have the rights and the people that want to exploit the rights. So, whether you're looking at the early days of like Grokster and these sorts of services that wound up creating Supreme Court precedent, all the way through YouTube, which was, I think anyone who looks at the numbers would tell you it was really a service that was built on the backs of the content that rights holders owned and had the rights to, but didn't necessarily compensate those holders, at least not until the courts sort of gently suggested that they do so. And on today, there's new services out, and I think that, by and large, when you travel or you go out, I have a lot of friends in the tech world, and I have a lot of friends, who are entrepreneurs in San Francisco, and a lot of friends who are in the social media space, and I also obviously, maybe not obviously, but have a lot of friends in the music business and in the music space as well. And when you talk to these people individually, everyone wants most people want sort of the same thing. I mean, there's giant corporations and monolithic entities that are set up that can make it difficult to be flexible and properly reactive or proactive. But the people that you talk to, whether it's someone at a major label, because it's, we've moved on from those days of Virgin Records. The music business has. Not that there aren't still a couple of those, but and the same thing on the tech side. It's not, the image I think that the media helps perpetuate sometimes is that, there's a bunch of like tech people who are dressed like pirates and they just want to take everyone's culture and, exploit it. And then, meanwhile the music business are a bunch of like 70-year-old Luddites who, have no idea how to turn on a computer. And that's, it's just not true, right? Like most people really want to figure this out and most people are excited by new ideas. So we have a conference, like we created a conference last year called Future Sound that we do every November. And it's really about that intersection of technology and music and investment and rights and sort of looking through some of the key issues. And we launched it last year, and I was amazed and really gratified by the spirit of the event, by the fact that people came and great people came and really wanted to kind of figure this out and really wanted to share their point of view on these things. So, I think what you're talking about, I mean, I've always thought that South by Southwest, it was sort of a symbol of some of the problems or the challenges that remain between the tech world and the investment world and then the music and the other culture industries as well, that they were separate. Obviously, I mean, Austin, for those of you that go down there, doesn't really have the infrastructure to support maybe everyone there at the same time. But as a metaphor, it's kind of powerful that, all these technology and social media people fill Austin and have their amazing time for 4 or 5 days. And they're all wearing their black plastic glasses and
pirate outfits.
Yeah, and then they all leave, and then in comes like the grungy rock people and the music people, and they have their separate time. And I always felt like there would be a great opportunity to kind of unite those things.
Yeah, I think the idea too, and I know this is something I'm actually trying to collaborate with him on, is to get South by Southwest to consider a merge day where interactive stays one day later and music comes one day earlier, because this is an emergence of an opportunity that I don't necessarily we understand. And then, Jermaine, I'm going to bring this back to you, because the one part that we all typically miss in these types of conversations is actually the power of the fan now and how the role of the fan has sort of changed. And MTV was here yesterday presenting some very interesting research on how individuals actually see the artist as the avatar, right? Where it's sort of almost like an extension of who they are, not as being like a literal follower now, but having a say and a play.
Brian, do you mind if I say one thing before we go there?
Absolutely.
Because I was just listening to you guys talk, and there's something that I always find inspiring, whether it's in people that I work with or people that I work for, or certainly people that are around the world. And it's that, you guys each had a situation where you had a problem that needed a solution, and you just solved it, right? So, and a lot of times that's where the best innovation and the most exciting things are happening, right? Like Daria was playing for Google Hangouts, and at that time, and she was a little modest about this, but at that time, Google Hangouts only let you play for 9 people. Right, and so
it wasn't
this thing where you could use it really as a broadcast platform. And because Daria was lucky enough that one of those 9 people was a tech geek, suddenly they were, her fans were creating these hacks for her and solving this problem of how to do this. And suddenly Daria is now the poster child of like how to use this platform. You owe your brother a nice. Thank you.
Everybody always says that. I do.
And Jermaine was the same situation, right? Like, he wanted to do this thing with Janet Jackson, couldn't get an answer. Now he's created Global 14, which is his own platform answer to this.
Right.
And that's where, there's a lot of hand-wringing that goes on and a lot of boardrooms and people having 7 meetings and let's get approval on this and that. But the most exciting stuff always is like, well, I couldn't do this thing. I want to do this thing. Let me figure out a way to make this thing happen.
Right. Well, what was that saying? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's this sort of idea too, as the social web evolves, as technology evolves. I mean, quite literally, I came up with that term digital Darwinism because technology and society are evolving. The question is whether we want to adapt to it, right? And at some point, we're going to have to lead it. And so I think in that case, you could take that necessity is the mother of invention quote and say something along the lines like relevance or the need for relevance is now the mother of innovation. And so that's what you do, right? Let's say you're an artist, you're a producer, you're a DJ, and an entrepreneur. So you start a network, Global 14. You already have a social brand, but I also see this too in terms of the community and people who love music of coming together and just sort of distribute it across the web. What was your inspiration for Global 14?
Global 14 actually also became an outlet for those that have been shunned as far as like she didn't have a place to actually perform or show her music to a person like myself. So, one thing that I noticed by having Twitter and all the other accounts is that 50% to 60% of the people that's talking to me, they all want me to see their talent, right? And all I did was create a platform where, you know, you can show your talent, you can do whatever you want to do, post your videos, post your music. And I created a community that if the community tells me that I should check it out, then I will check it out. That's basically how the record business works anyway. You know what I mean? It's
just that the community has moved.
Yeah, the community is,
Different
my
communities.
community is like my A&R department.
That's really cool.
You know what I mean? And it's like, if you post and you have, like it's a girl that's on there by the name of Destiny. I think she's 14 years old. Now, she's not really ready to put out records yet as far as 100% the material being that great. But her drive on my site and coming every day and getting other people on the site to talk to her and engage in the conversation is what made me pay attention to her. And from that, I just created this commercial for Global 14 where I used her in the commercial. And, you know, that's not getting a record out, but it's still, she got a phone call from me and she's now in a commercial that's part of something that I have, which is, you know, that starts that drive of getting her going down that road. Now, if she sparks up an incredible song, I will be the first person to hear that record, and I probably will be the first person to put that record out. And that's basically what I'm trying to do. I'm like, the next 5 years, I see Global 14 being the biggest music pool of artists ever, because, you know, it's a place where kids actually can play their music, get their music seen, and if you do what she did on Global 14, the person who owns the site, which is me, who also owns a record label, who also knows him at Billboard,
Hey.
you know, we can make some shit happen.
I think that's a retweetable moment right there. Well, speaking of making shit happen, Daria, one of the things that I really love about you is that you've built a tremendous community. I mean, you haven't started dropping numbers, but it's a really big community. And one of the things that Carmen had said yesterday was that, you know, they stay committed to their community. Obviously, you stay committed to your community. I love the fact that you have been at this conference both days, at these sessions, talking to everybody in the hallways. Like you don't have to do that, but you do, because you're learning. So what does that say then to you about the importance of community and the role that a fan and your community plays in the future of your career?
It means absolutely everything. I mean, I think it's interesting because, again, it's like mother of invention. And, you know, for me, I was lonely as an artist and even as a person. I was looking for people to connect with. And so I think the overwhelming excitement that I had meeting people for the first time and then having those people be from around the world. You know, not only was I getting this massive hit off of people hearing my music for the first time, songs that I had written to pump myself up, to keep me going, like after a dream, and then hearing that they were pumping other people up. And then those people are from, you know, Norway and Tehran and India and all over the world, all these places, and I'm learning about the world through their eyes. And so it's interesting because I don't even call them fans. I know most artists have like pet names for their crew. Now mine is Geniuses, because I learn so much from them, and they blow my mind every day, and they become the next lyric and the next song. You know, I'm gonna play a song for you guys later. That's like my little sort of love song for the site, for, you know, for Google Plus, that I wrote in the moment while I was doing my first Hangout concert, because I went, again, like for 6.5 hours, so I started running out of material. So it's like, we gotta come up with something here. And there was this guy from Norway who stayed with us the whole time, and he turned his laptop to the window, and I saw the sunrise in Norway through his laptop, and that became, I saw the sunrise in Norway through your laptop screen. It never felt so good to be seen as when you looked at me. Nighttime here, morning in Australia, and I never felt so alive, and I never felt so in love. And so it just becomes a part of everything.
Hold on a second. Yeah.
I don't have to sing my answer.
Well, sorry, you're singing your outro.
I'll empty the room fast.
And now you guys know that part of the song, so when she sings it later, we're all singing along.
Yep.
So please finish.
Oh yeah, so I mean, I just think, I mean, what was the question? Just about how important it is
Yeah,
and how
just
it
the role
shapes,
of the
shapes
fan.
everything. Yeah, and it's just, it's a family, and it is that thing of like the Crash the Party idea has become something really fun because like we're doing stuff, and you guys will see if you stick around later, and I really hope you do. I guess one after this when we play, I may or may not be bringing some friends from around the world with me to come hang out with us, and you'll sort of see what that feels like, and how, you know, it's amazing. Usually when I do it, people tell me they tear up and they're laughing, they're singing along, and we just have a really great time, you know, connecting in that way.
Yeah, in fact, I would love to just test the power of community for you right now, because that was a little surprise, but we are going to do live Google Hangouts as she's playing. So the world is going to come into the room with us. So if you might mind sending a tweet, or if you don't mind sending a tweet about, you know, everybody make sure to stick around, make sure to get over here to the ballroom, because she's going to do something
They're really
quite special.
excited to see you. They made signs and all sorts of stuff. We had so many responses. We're gonna do the rotation thing that I do. Like that's the other thing we talk about, drive and just, you know, wanting something so much and then loving it when you're doing it. You know, I do marathon concerts. It happened as an organic kind of accident that first night when so many people wanted to come in, and I said, tell them I'll keep going. You know, and so I've done, you know, 6.5 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours on New Year's. I did 24 hours around the world, like ringing in the New Year with people. And so we rotate those seats still, even though anybody can watch now, because what we did ended up, I would have never expected this to inspire Google to make a product, you know, and it did, and they have Hangouts on Air. So it's a broadcast, but I still want to meet people face to face, you know, so we're going to rotate people today, and there's a lot of people waiting, so
Right,
it should be
and,
fun.
Todd, I know you're probably looking at the clock getting mad at me, but I just want to let you know that I'm going to ask 1 or 2 more questions, and then we're going to call it. Jermaine, I want to ask you about Global 14, right? Because at the end of the day, there's a saying, and this is nothing on you, but there's a saying, and it's a compliment about the idea of the lazy web. Right? The thing that social media has done is that it puts people at the center of their own, what I call the ecosystem. Right? They literally make the world revolve around them. Mm-hmm. So they make information come to them. They don't, instead of going to search something, they ask a question to get the answer to come to them. And so you just did that for AR, right? You just brought the world to you with Global 14, but you've also created a really wonderful community of people engaging around ideas, around music, around you. The one thing I find interesting is that you also have a label behind it. So how does this, if at all, inspire you to rethink your approach to the music business in general?
Well, business as a whole, not just the music business, it makes me challenge other CEOs, because I believe that social alone has taken the CEO that usually is in the top tower and has made him have to come down to the first floor and see exactly what's going on, as well as the CEO has to walk around with an iPad to know exactly what's, you know, you can't just be a CEO that goes to the Hamptons and, you know, and calls and finds out what's happening in the building anymore. I mean, it's too much going on, you know what I mean? And it's so much going on at so many different times of the day that you have to become a different CEO. You know, I've been spending a lot of time in San Francisco with these kids that got this factory O, right? And they work 9 to 5 different than 9 to 5 other people. Other people go to work at 9 in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They work from 9 o'clock at night to 5 a.m. in the morning. And that is the 9 to 5 that I fuck with hard, right? I've been doing that since I was 12 years old. When I made Crisscross, I was making records at 6 o'clock in the morning because nobody else was up. My mother was asleep. Everybody was asleep, and they would leave me alone, and it was the time that I could actually talk to myself and feel cool about talking to myself without somebody catching me and looking crazy. But I say that to say that social alone has made me just say that I'm challenging every CEO or every person that claims to be a boss that you have to get you have to get dirty with these people. You know, what I have done with Global 14 is that I created a place that at first people say, oh, it's a new network that is launched by a celebrity, right? But it's not it's not that mentality. The celebrity created it. Nobody brought it to me, and nobody told me to do it. I created it, and I talk as if you're not even there. I'm posting stuff that I'm thinking. These are my thoughts, and if you talk back to me, then that's when the experience turns into something completely different. And I think that, more people that own companies and more CEOs to know more about their companies and to know more about this stuff and what he's doing with his convention, the Billboard. I think you have to really, really get engaged, and that's basically what I've learned is being, how to run the label. Because like one of my first artists from YouTube was this girl named Dondria that I put out. And she came from YouTube, and she came from having 5 million people watching her with no record deal. And I thought, how the hell is this possible? Bow Wow, at this time when I found this girl, Bow Wow wasn't really into social as well, right? And I said, Bow Wow, this girl artist that I found, she has more followers on YouTube than you do. And he's like, I don't care, my movie did 50 million. And I'm like, okay, yeah, right, all right, And he sold a lot of records, but we was that's from a high side. We was all into the life of him selling 50 million, his movie doing 50 million, his record selling millions of records. But at the same time, it was a piece that was missing with him. As big as he was, he didn't have that social component, right? And I introduced him to Twitter. And, since then, his Twitter numbers is crazy. But it's just a piece that, you have to pay attention to this stuff. Right. This stuff is, and you have to get involved with it in order for your numbers to, explode. A lot of people, like, I know a lot of actresses that make movies, big actresses, and their Twitter numbers is terrible, right? And I'm just like, that's because all y'all do is make movies and y'all don't say nothing. You just think that just because you're in Batman or whatever it is, your numbers, it's not like that. These kids want you to actually talk to them. Basically the same thing we're doing right now. They want to be able to be a part of that. Just like you said, y'all about to bring the world in here. Those kids probably really are, for anybody that does not know what she's talking about, they are really waiting to be a part of this conversation that we're having right now. And if you're not privy to this, your business is going to crash in the near future.
Although a lot of people that have come lately to it confuse the platform with the content, right?
Yeah.
Because, there's like the Soulja Boy problem where you have 2 million followers and you put out your album and then you sell like 13 copies.
Well, we still, now that piece that he's talking about, we still haven't, it doesn't actually mean that if you have 2 million followers, you're going to sell 2 million records.
Yeah.
That's
I think everyone in this room probably grasped that, but there's some people in the music business that still got to wrap their head around it a little bit.
Yeah, people still don't understand it. They think if somebody has 15 million followers, they're going to sell 15 million records. It doesn't work like that. And it's still, a lot of times, like I said, it still has a lot to do with the engagement. If you have an artist, we was talking about this backstage, she was wondering why the bigger artists don't do what she's doing, right? That's the reason. The bigger artists are looking at her like, yeah, that's what you do when you first get started. I'm the shit right now. I got, you can't have that.
It's so true what he's saying,
too. You can't have that mentality. Like you're saying she's been here for the last 2 days and she doesn't have to. She does have to. I as a CEO, if she was my artist, she'd be here every day. Tomorrow, even when y'all not
even when
here.
the conference is over.
When it's over.
I want you there just like soaking up the vibe from the walls.
I mean, this is part of what we do. This is the job, and this is the life of an artist now. The way artists used to be broke, like she said in the clubs, 3 people was there. We don't have that experience anymore. You have to learn these new experiences from social and these worlds, and it will happen the same way, but you have to put the work in.
Right. I want to end it there, but because that was so strong. But I got to give you just one last opportunity.
He's gonna sing.
Yeah, to sing. So the
I
last.
do some Pearl Jam karaoke. That's about the extent of it.
Oh well, should we challenge him?
No, don't even.
All right. So in a word or a few, look, it's clear that he couldn't be more right. She couldn't be more right. I mean, this is the future. So what is it going to take for the industry? So the industry meaning, let's say the business side of it, to recognize.
When you say the industry, you mean the music industry?
Yeah, the music industry. to see what it's going to take to come down to the first level. And then what's it also going to take for artists to recognize that this really is an opportunity to not just start over, but just to, I don't know, for Windows users out there to Control-Alt-Delete this moment and actually restart with something that's a little bit more meaningful.
What's Windows?
I don't.
No, I'm just kidding.
I open them for fresh air every now and then.
Listen, I think I'm gonna get in trouble. I think that a couple things. Number one, there's not one music business anymore, right? There's a music business that is like major labels and major publishers and major stars and major radio play, and then there's a music business that's like indie labels and indie artists and maybe starting to experiment more with some different platforms and really own that. And then there's Daria's music business, which doesn't look much like the music business that most people think of when they think about the music business, where it's direct relationships to fans. And I think that the thing that's really exciting about today is that the smart people, the hungry people, the resourceful people, the ones that are going to succeed, are the ones that, wherever they are in that hierarchy, are going to figure it out. You know, are going to figure out what tools work for them, what feels credible to them. It's fun, it's exciting, right? There's a lot out there. I mean, whether we're kind of all in the same business, right? We all make content. We all want to distribute that content to the people that want it, whether you're making a magazine or a website or a video or a song or creating an artist. And I think that the tools that are out there right now are so exciting and so empowering. But you just got to jump in. It's like what I said earlier. It's not, the answer is not going to be found in a boardroom, and it's not going to come in the form of like someone investing $4 million. Like if it's right, usually if it's right, like it just kind of happens fairly organically, or it fills a need and you jump to it. There's one footnote that I'll say, which is that you're right. Like if you're an artist today and you're not on the Daria train, and you're not figuring it out and that sort of thing, you're probably missing a lot of opportunities. There is a part of me that's a little bit sad about that like, because there's a lot of really, like, you know, the skill set of being amazing at playing guitar or having an amazing voice and knowing how to use it is not necessarily the same skill set at knowing how to like socially market yourself. Right? And so some of what's happening today is that the artists that are, and the labels have less money than they've had, right? So they don't want to invest in artists that don't, quote unquote, have a story to tell. So you kind of have to come to the label where you've already created your story a little bit, and then the labels will invest in you and maybe take you to the next level. But if you can't create that story first, you're disadvantaged. Mm-hmm. And that creates a little bit of an uneven playing field for artists that maybe are just phenomenally talented at the music, but
just to say, that's what I think I've noticed with Global 14, and that's where I guess the bridge comes. Yeah. The bridge is that if you are one of those artists and you're on there, and you don't have this girl's energy. This girl has great energy. But if you don't have this energy,
I have more energy now just because I was sitting on the stage with you. Yeah. I was kind of tired. Now I'm like, I gotta go do 10 things.
If you don't have that energy, but you seem to be putting the music out there, my community will tell me. They'll step up for you, and we'll help that situation get further, basically. Yeah. I have a question for all of y'all before we go. When y'all gonna sign up for Global 14?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I need to get on there right away.
Concert.
Yeah, absolutely. We could do the first global concert on Global 14.
There we go.
There you go. That just happened right here. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's give a warm round of applause. Thank you so much. Great.